The Shadow by Carl Jung. Carl Jung, probably the biggest psychologist after Sigmund Freud, had a radical different idea than Freud. As you're probably aware, Sigmund Freud believed that you have the social cultural norms that crush your animal side, and the battle between those two is your individual psyche, which is pretty fucked up, but that's what he believed. And I think there's some truth to that theory, but Carl Jung believed it more into to be a religious thing. He believed it to be a battle between good and evil, right? As more morality than it is with Sigmund Freud, because Carl Jung was a very Christian and very biblical-based psychologist. And it's interesting because in the Bible, it's actually the same thing. You have the good, which battles against the bad. And you have that in every society, in every human, throughout the Bible again and again and again. You have the evil, the false values, the sins that rise, and then the whole humanity gets vanished away in a big flood, or the city gets destroyed, or Babylon gets spread into pieces because they try to become like God and follow the bad and the evil, and the good is always the battle against that. So Carl Jung believed this to be on two levels. He believed that there's a shadow and a dark side on every individual, and there is a shadow and a light side to every society. That's the collective unconscious. And he thought that this battle is going on in your individual psyche, but the battle is also going on in society. So that's a pretty crazy theory, and I believe that to be true. So how does the shadow in your psyche looks like? A lot of people will deny that they have a shadow. They will deny that they're evil. They have some evil inside of them because they want to appear good. They want to appear likable. And so they avoid integrating their shadow. But the thing is that you're basically a fucking ape, like a chimpanzee. And chimpanzees are not all good always. They can be aggressive and fucking evil. And humans are the same thing. We murder, we kill, we exploit, we're selfish. We have all those negative things to us. Of course, we can be compassionate, we can be caring, we can be self-sacrificing and heroic, which is the light side, which is the good. But Carl Jung believed you can only become a good person if you integrate your shadow. And you can see this in the classical hero myth, for example. Like, the hero always is somewhat aggressive, right? He's breaking rules. Like, if you look at Batman, for example, the police doesn't like him. Yeah, they have an issue with him. Or you can see in Spider-Man 3, for example, that they literally present his dark side. They play with the negative parts of Peter Parker a little bit, and that's why the reason why people are drawn to that is because they have that shadow in them, which has the same energy. So how do you integrate your shadow? Because that's what you need to do in order to become a fully developed person, according to Carl Jung. I would say step one is to become self-conscious of your thoughts and feelings. And the one that you need to be most aware of is resentment and the desire to make people pay. And sometimes you will see that you even have resentful feelings and want to make people pay who didn't do anything to you, right? Those feelings are what drives people to perform evil actions. That resentment, that hate is exactly what's the issue. Look at the classical school shooter, right? Like, he isolates himself, he's bitter and he's resentful towards his other students, and he hates them and he blames them for his own misery. And then when you can blame other people for your own misery, then you might as well can kill them, right? So that's how the shadow operates when it takes over, and that's only going to happen if you're unconscious about your shadow. Because if you consciously integrate your shadow, you're not going to become that evil. So how do you consciously integrate your shadow? become aware of your thoughts and feelings, the resentful ones, the violent ones, the aggressive ones, the sexual ones, those impulses, those dark impulses, dark sexual impulses, yeah? Having sex with a dog. I'm just kidding. I don't know what you're into, man, but like people have fucked up thoughts, feelings, fantasies, whatever, and you need to become self-aware of them and then start to communicate them. So I had this, for example, my most fucked up thought that I would obviously never act out, but that I had a lot of issues with, that I had like a thought, like an intrusive thought, oh, imagine you rape this kid. Okay, it's not like a fantasy, it's just like an intrusive thought, similar to you stand at the subway and you see a guy close to the rails and you think about kicking him in front of the train, right? That intrusive thought, like, oh, imagine you kick him in front of the train and he's dead. Similar to that, you would never act it out, but you have this thought. The only way to get this under control is by integrating that, by communicating those thoughts. Otherwise, you will never control them. So you need to firstly become self-conscious on all the negative thoughts, and then you need to bring them to the light, because the only thing that can heal the darkness or can battle darkness is light. And so you need to bring the shadow to the light, and then the light will win, and you can get the shadow under control. But if you're unaware of it, and if you think that you have no shadow, then you're just naive, and then you're one of the most dangerous people of all. And that brings us to the next topic, which is the collective unconscious, which is the social evil, according to Carl Jung. So the collective unconscious is basically like the social norms in Sigmund Freud's work, but it's more like an energy, more like a psyche. So the collective unconscious drives people to behave in group settings in ways they would never do on an individual basis. And it's very clear in psychology that people do the dumbest shit if they're in big groups and if they believe in some super weird values. So the collective unconscious is actually the most dangerous one. And you can see in the 20th century, the communists, the Nazis, the whole like genocide that people did in groups, they got together, is a very good example of how quickly the collective and unconscious go evil. And don't be thinking that this is super far away from you, because this happened 80 years ago and it used to happen all over again in humanity all the time. So you're the same kind of person as this Nazi SS guard back then. And this is a really fucked up thing to realize, but it's 100% true. And if you don't know that, then you haven't read a piece of psychology in your life. So you need to be aware of that you can turn that way. And the only way to avoid that is by integrating your shadows through radical honesty. I'm a big defender of this philosophy. I've been criticized for it a lot, but I can tell you that I became a much better person since I've integrated my shadow by being radically honest about what I think and feel. Because this way I can look at and I can let other people look at the evil inside of me. And that way, if it's in the open, if it's in the light, it's much easier to control than if it's in the darkness and hidden away. And it also forces you to become a good person. Because if you look at the most evil people on an individual level, let's say a predatory psychopath, what they have in common is that they're chronological liars. So be radically honest, the first indicator is going to be that you're a good person. You're the opposite of a psychopath, and that's a good thing, being the opposite of a psychopath, isn't it? It also forces you to act properly. The only reason psychopath lies is because he needs to lie to get away with his crimes all the time, right? You can't murder people, or you can't exploit or manipulate people if you're honest. That's literally the opposite of being honest. And if you're radically honest about who you are, about the negative sides of yourself, it's going to force you to become a better person, because you need to let people look at your heart, at your open heart all the time. So yes, I hope I could explain you a little bit how to do shadow work, why you need to do it. It's so worth it. It's truth and shadow integration is going to be the opposite of evil and resentment and hate, and it's going to bring more light in the world. But you need to look at the darkness, and you need to look at it enough, and you need to integrate it in order to become a good person. So enjoy your shadow work.